Okay, so this is my second day working at McDonald's. I had my first training day yesterday, which is June 13th. Mind you, that was a little chaotic. I had to, I guess I was definitely being rushed by one of the managers. I'm just going to call her Kay. And Kay was rushing me right the first day, which was fine, It wasn't fine. I'm not going to lie to you. Because if you're a manager of that stature, and you've been there for how long you've been there, you shouldn't be treating new hires like that and saying that you're getting mad by new hires because they don't know what they're doing, but they're new hires, so they're not going to know what we're doing. Mind you, I come from a food service background, so I've worked at Panera Bread, right? So this is very much kind of a secondary Panera Bread. This is McDonald's, right? And you'd be like, McDonald's, Panera Bread aren't the same. However, if you work Panera Bread at night or during the lunch rush, you understand it's busy, and that's even more taxing because you have to make it to order. This is not like you have things, like burgers ready and nuggets ready that you could just, whip up and put in the box. I feel like Panera is even more time consuming and time conscious than McDonald's. And because you have different sandwiches that you have to remember and the breads and shit like that. So it's really, I had it bad at Panera Bread and I loved it, right? And it was fine. Here at McDonald's, I don't know. There's just a thing in the air about like rushing people for no reason, right? And then on top of being rushed by that one manager, sometimes you have to get your own drinks, right? And they're like, well, you should help them out. But sometimes you should let them get the drinks. So there's no consistency in what a person or a packer, so to speak, would do, right? So if I had comparison to what McDonald's would be doing compared to what I used to do at Panera, a packer would be some like a QC, right? Quality control. They would pack the bag and give it to the customer, right? Which is great. We had labels and things of that nature. Now, what I had to do, you have one packer for drive-through and one packer for here orders, right? And so the same thing would be at Panera, one packer or QC for drive-through, one packer for, here orders, right? Or, the drive-through or whatever the case may be, right? And I say this to say that this is my second day of training and I believe that manager should not be in the manager position, even though that's really not my choice, right? And not my decision because I haven't put in the hours or I haven't seen what they've been through and how they stuck up or how that person has, stepped up to the plate. But I understand they are very tenacious and very, outgoing to be at McDonald's. But at the same time, I'm just trying to understand how you are in a management position and don't know how to either manage and or train employees. You getting mad at employees for messing up, trainees and high school students, girls specifically, on the second day of their first time job is asinine to me. Now, I got a small talking to, like, I'm moving too slow or I'm moving too fast, right? And there was no in the middle, right? Because they're like, either you're moving too fast and missing orders or you're moving too slow for them, which is, like, not really okay, right? Mind you, at Panera Bread, we had a 5-minute, period to make a sandwich, 7-minute max. Here, I guess you have a 4-minute, what's it called? Time frame to make sandwiches and shit like that. So it's it's that. And one thing I will say, it's just very, very annoying to see that again. I'm surrounded by an imbecile of a manager who says one thing, wants another thing done, and then just inconsistent and just believes that they're doing something by just yelling over you, like berating you for what you already know to do, and you're trying your best on your second day of the job and being like, this is a fast-paced environment. I get that. But you yelling over somebody's head is not making it any better or making it, like, rush or, make anything better. Like, there were times where I got berated about something that I didn't do because I didn't have the ability to even complete my order, that was on the screen like I was supposed to because y'all were telling this other person to do what I was supposed to be doing for the order that I was on. Like, I really got into a rhythm of what I was doing and making shit work. And then when y'all added other people, trying to make them more cohesive into this shitstorm of a, what's that thing? A cart or, a cog in a machine. It just didn't work, right? So, like, it was horrible. And the fact of the matter is the manager said that, after training, like, they're going to be treated like everybody else. That person deserves not to be a manager anymore. They obviously don't like working there. They obviously don't like the people they work with, which is fine. But you don't have to like the people you work with. You need to respect them and not belittle them. Like, it's very condescending and belittling to talk to people a certain way for whatever reason because you are a manager or whatever. And for the simple fact that, like, you may not like them or whatever the case may be, that's wrong. That's bad. Or, like, you don't believe that they're capable of doing that. And that's asinine, too, considering that a lot of the people you're doing that to are new. Birth for confirmation. And at the same time, she had spoken, Kay, the manager I'm talking about, had spoken to one of the new girls, in a very condescending tone, and someone had to check her, like, girl, you don't really need to speak to her like that. And she began to say, well, who's going to teach them? Like, who's going to show them? Blah, 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 and nobody else is going to do it. But you can't do it like that. Like, this is their second day probably on the job. Like, fuck. Like, bro, like, you have a need to feel like you need to say something. It's very narcissistic. And, you know, what I realized, a lot of these people who do this probably are narcissists in real life, in relationships, which is horrible. Don't bring that shit around me. Because I said this to say, like, the first time I had this was for my last job working in corporate as an internal auditor, an audit associate, in fact, and dealing with the same type of manager who is micromanaging, not helping, having stringent deadlines, but not helping you meet those deadlines. This was a black woman, and it's a black woman I'm dealing with right now, and it's a shame how I get to have to deal with this from black women who want to see you struggle and not, you know, help you, and they're in a management position, and I don't know how the fuck they got there, but it's really, they need to be checked, like, for real. Like, for instance, again, going back to the audit associate job that I just recently left in March, and it's just the fact of the matter is, why are you as a manager, not one, well, only one, trying to get me fired, right, putting me on a PIP plan, right, considering that there's only 4 people on a team, and I'm only doing the business process controls, and there's over 100 controls to do. Mind you, we had just switched to another external auditor. Now, this is jargon that I'm using and language and verbiage that I'm using within the finance and auditing world. If you don't know, then auditing has specific languages talking about external auditors that you use, you know, in connection to your internal auditors, right? Which is different when working in the food service. I have a plethora of experience, which I love to talk about because I do. But just saying that the experience I've had working as an internal auditor associate, right? I loved the fact that, and this is at Stride specifically, and I love the fact that I got to, you know, work from home and blase, but the manager I was working with, again, just like working with Kay, was very condescending, you know, not helpful, and just wanted to see me fail. And you can see that from putting me on a PIP plan, given that I was the only person working on internal controls, right, holistically, that we had over 100 of them, and we were adding some more based upon our external auditors, which were KPMG, selecting, you know, in scope and reliance controls, and taking unreliance and not reliance controls, and taking them out. So it was a whole bunch of shit that was going on, and we were expected to just fall in line with that and be okay with it and meet, you know, our fiscal year end, which is as of June, was it July 30th? I think it's July 30th, not 12/31, right? So we're under a stringent time frame. This is not helpful, right? And they just wanted to make excuses. I hope that bitch got fired. I really did. Because if you hear this, I hope you got fired, and I hope you got jumped. Seriously. I'm so serious. Because the karmic lessons that I'm learning from working with black female managers who don't know a lick of shit on how to manage people. You can do the job, but you can't manage people. Stop. You don't need to be managers. You need to go to hell. Like, you don't need to be managers. You need to go straight to hell. Like, and stay there. Because you need to go get a master's in knowing how to manage. That's what you need to do. Whoever elevated y'all because y'all put more time in, work into y'all lives is asinine. And they also need to be checked out. Because that's disturbing. That does not show loyalty and, you know, connection to the job. It just shows you have no life. Get a life, bitch. Fuck. Damn.